A t-shirt marketer is one who has broad experience in several verticals. So here's an image from Digital Marketer, where they show, across the t-axis, you've got like a broad range of different verticals from content, marketing, email, data, and so forth. And that's just like I said, it's just having some broad knowledge. You may not be awesome at everything, but you'll typically be really good or have a lot of knowledge in the vertical part of the T, which represents deep knowledge.
Looking like a baddie, I show up and make them stop. Wanna know my name so badly, cause I run this whole block. Flip my hair, move my head, show the world I'm royalty. When I walk by, they be taking bows, cause they know I'm the queen, yeah.
Hello, fans and listeners of the Experimentation Conference. My name's Richard Joe, and I've got the pleasure of talking about a topic that's quite dear to my heart. It's about the importance of being a T-shaped marketer within CRO. So yeah, I'm a CRO manager for MyState Bank, and yeah, let's get into it. So a little bit about my story. I've got a varied background, mostly across client side, working in small to medium organizations with a very generalist skill set in paid ads, SEO, email marketing, social media, and so forth, and even had a stint as a web dev, which came in handy. And I had been trying to get into into a CRO for a few years, and like some of you may have experienced, even after doing, like a certification from CXL or so forth, just was in that sort of situation where I didn't have the 2 years requisite experience, and yet they wanted someone in the specialist role, So, long story short, I managed to transition to a CRO role, client side, my current company, MyState Bank, about just over a year ago. And even saying that, even though I am now in a specialist role and I love it, I've found that the varied experience that I've had has actually been very invaluable in giving me a holistic understanding of the customer experience in general, when it comes to running experimentations and ideation, and as well as like how to cross collaborate, both within and across teams. So you may be wondering, what is a T-shaped marketer? T-shaped marketer is one who has broad experience in several verticals. So here's an image from Digital Marketer, where they show, across the t-axis, you've got like a broad range of different verticals from content, marketing, email, data, and so forth. And that's just like I said, it's just having some broad knowledge. You may not be awesome at everything, but you'll typically be really good or have a lot of knowledge in the vertical part of the T, which represents deep knowledge.
This is Romo Santiago from Experiment Nation. Every week we share interviews with and conference sessions by our favorite conversion rate optimizers from around the world. So if you like this video, smash that like button and consider subscribing. It helps us a bunch. Now back to the episode.
So in this case, we've got paid media. You may be very experienced in that, spending tons of ad spend and paid media from Google and Facebook ads and so forth. So that's typically what the situation is with a T-shaped marketer. And why be a T-shaped marketer? How that relates to the CRO process. I found that it's helped me to be a more rounded experimenter. I'll get into more of the details later on. I think it's also helped me to kind of empathize with the kind of traffic sources we have and behavior patterns, and help me to run more effective tests in understanding that. And in some ways, it's helped me to become more autonomous and have less reliance on others, particularly with having skills in web development and being able to code test up myself and liaise or even liaise with developers internally and externally. And yeah, I'll get into some of the details about how it's helped me to have a better knowledge of in terms of how to cross collaborate both within teams and agencies. Topics we'll cover. We're going to cover psychological principles, statistical basics, basics on web development. We'll dive deeper into traffic types and behavior, the importance of learning to code, and finding an influencer and a mentor. And bear in mind that there's a really broad quick overflow of all the skill sets you can learn. So feel free to dive deeper into these topics or any other topics within the T-shaped marketing spectrum later on. You just got to find what suits your context and needs. We'll get into psychological principles. I'll just move my little head bobble thing. I think there's a really important thing to understand psychological principles of things as a CRO and a marketer, because it helps us to understand user behavior patterns and develop tests in relation to that. And if you can find if you can understand your customers, then you can empathize with them and hence develop tests that are going to be more suited to them, and you'll probably get better winnings out of that. So I think an important thing to know is have an understanding of what's called the System 1 and System 2, which is a kind of a dichotomy that Daniel Kahneman talked about in Thinking Fast and Slow. It's a really good book, really big book, but very comprehensive. And basically he talks about how we have this System 1 part of our brain, which is, if you could have this false dichotomy. So System 1 is basically it's covers 95% of our sort of thought processes, and it's the kind of intuitive, instinctual, so-called maybe reptilian part of our brain, where we're making unconscious, fast decisions without really even rationally thinking about it, that much cognitively, and it's kind of like an autopilot. You counter that with System 2, which is more kind of like the evolved part of the brain, which tends to occupy 5% of our sort of capacity, so to speak. And it's more kind of effortful, slow, rational, logical sort of thinking, but it's also can be very lazy too. So having an understanding of those things is very important, and helps us to develop tests as experimenters. I'll go into that a bit more detail soon on that. And I think another good book, if you're really into this, really new to this sort of stuff, is Influenced by Robert Cialdini. He's got a PhD, sold 5 million of his books, Influence. And just having an understanding of the 6 principles he talks about, from reciprocity, commitment and consistency, social proof, authority, liking and scarcity, helps you to kind of empathize with how users will typically interact with a website. These are obviously broad-based principles, but just to sort of cover briefly, reciprocity is the whole idea of that, if I give you something, you're naturally obliged to give me something back. Whereas commitment and consistency is the whole idea that we will be consistent with how we think about ourselves. So if we think that we're like an athlete, we will act consistently with that, and we'll go to the gym every day and eat healthy and so forth. Social proof, pretty self-evident. If you see a restaurant and you walk past and there's 100 people inside versus one that's got 0, you see the one with all the people inside as a form of social proof that maybe this restaurant's a good place to go to, and then it could influence your decision making. Authority is the whole idea that we give we give sort of precedence to authority and authority figures, and you have like the police and people in uniforms. There's a sort of a, for instance, there's an ear to authority with that, and it does affect your behavior patterns. Liking is all about, well, if you like something or someone, it will tend to have like a maybe kind of a halo effect, and then therefore affects your actions in a positive way. Conversely, if you dislike someone or something, then the opposite effect will happen. And scarcity is, as it says, the whole idea of if something's scarce, then you have a natural tendency to have a bit of what they call it FOMO these days, but you'll tend to value it highly and not want to miss out on something. So that's playing around with these principles like that and other ones will have an understanding of these principles and how they contribute towards test ideas is something that's important to know about. Just one thing I wanted to note, which is quite important. What a important specific example is with Kogan.com. This is like an e-commerce website in Australia. Important principle I wanted to note is about choice architecture, which is playing on the whole system one aspect of things. So it's not so much cognitively, it's not so much, it's not so much rational sort of thinking it's influencing user, but it's playing in the high idea of system one thinking, where it's kind of like more subconscious and more intuitive. And choice architecture is a very common thing to be used in CRO experimentation. I did talk to one person, I think it was from Online Dialogue, I forgot the name, but he said that the vast majority of their tests were based on system one choice architecture based base sort of testing. So it's the whole idea that how you present choices, or that the concept of presentation of choices in different ways can impact your decision making. So for instance, I won't open up this website, but if we look on the top right hand corner, there's a sticky CTA add to cart button, and that pops up as the user scrolls down, and it's sticky and persistent. So that's because that's always going to be in the user's field of vision. It thereby, and I'm sure they've done testing on this, it thereby has an interaction effect where they want to be able to click it. And then obviously Kogan's done stats that's proved that maybe with StatSig that having this button has added more clicks to cart and so forth. So good sort of book to read about this is Nudge by Richard Taylor and Cass Sunstein. It's all about the whole concept of choice architecture and nudging a user to the action that you want them to do. Statistical basics. Yeah, I think it's this is an area that I've kind of noticed that quite a few CROs can be quite weak on. I think because it is very technical, and people might give them nightmares of stats based from having to do it as a subject in high school and whatever, and it can be overly academic at times. But I think it's good to understand the basics of statistics. And I won't show this article, but Deborah O'Malley from Guess and Test did have a wonderful article. I think it was entitled "Finally Statistical Significance Explained" or something like that, and explains like what exactly is StatSig, what is what are these things called p-values, confidence intervals, MED, minimal detectable effects, and then she talks about type 1 and 2 errors and all these kinds of things. So I mean, I'm not a awesome super stats person. I try to know as much as I can, and I often have to go back and read her articles like that, the one I mentioned. And just because you've just got to, you just got to keep reminding yourself, because it's very easy to forget this stuff. And I think another good book that I recommend is Trustworthy Online Control Experiments by Ron Kahavi. Wasn't one of the earlier ones that I read, and it's definitely well worth the read. He does get into explaining all these things that I've mentioned. And from someone that's come from like the big tech world and leading experimentation in those areas, yeah, to give me a really good understanding. So, like, I think going back to understanding stats and how it's related to CRO, like having an understanding of at least the basic knowledge does go a long way in helping us to interpret our statistical our data from a statistical framework, and knowing if our data is trustworthy before we even make a call on our experiments and implement them. Because you can't be, it's not good to be a lazy CRO and just sort of rely on your testing tool. Like, I always go back into GA and see if our primary goal didn't meet stat sig, and then I'm always slicing and dicing the data and so forth. So I think having some basics of stats does help. It does go a long way. This is a very very broad topic. But just having an understanding of web analytics. I'm mentioning a book that might be a bit outdated by now, but I've been going through it a little bit last few months, and it's just helped me to understand the insights of understanding web analytics and getting to that frame of mind. And look, I mean, by the time this will be published, obviously, I'm talking about having some understanding of GA basics and custom reporting, and GA4's around the corner. Well, it's already out, but I think a lot of people need to understand GA4, including myself. Just having an understanding of web analytics is important, because it helps us to have as a CRO, have a good grasp of quantitative data on our website, and key pages that we're targeting, and knowing the flow and effect, the flow on, or the general movement patterns that customers have. They might be going from homepage to product page to add to cart and so forth, and knowing where those drop-offs are, and how to slice and dice, segment data, for instance, between mobile and desktop, new and returning, all these sort of things. Like, you need to be able to look into the analytics. And I think also interplay that with having some basic knowledge of stats and stat sig and so forth. And if you're into the frequentist model that I'm into, like having those interplay with each other when you're like looking and interpreting data and making a call on whether a test is a winner or not, and in what way, I think it will go a long way for you. Next, we get into like traffic types and behavior. And if you're not aware, there is organic SEO, which is basically generated through what's called a search engine optimization. In other words, like ranking higher in Google organic search, and it's comprised of kind of two parts. Basically, is on-page SEO, where you're optimizing the title tags and meta descriptions and content and so forth with keywords that people are looking for. And then the other part is backlinking, where you've got backlinks going from hopefully high ranked websites than you, high page ranked websites. They call them PR, or PR, high page ranked websites, which are basically acts like a voting system. So you've got all these websites with backlinks pointing to you. It's basically like a voting system saying, hey, that's telling Google, hey, all these this website, this page is really good, and then Google basically be like, hey, I trust that, I'm going to rank this higher for this keyword and so forth. You will typically get like higher conversion rates, particularly with, say, like long tail keywords and lower bounce rates, because it's all about the whole intent. I could have put like a little diagram showing the long tail curve, but maybe later on Google long tail SEO, you will find that that generally speaking, the long tail is where you get like the bulk of the wins, whereas the lower portion of the tail, where you're targeting more like one or two word keywords, you probably tend to get a lot more. You get a lot more competition, but you might get a higher, conversely higher bounce rate and lower conversion rate, because those people tend to be at the sort of start of their buying journey. Good source is Neil Patel's blog. Just Google the Neil Patel Beginner Guide to SEO. He's got a lot of good information on that. And here's a quick diagram about like an example of organic listing. Probably should have showed like 3 or 4 listings, but yeah, you get a story. Like you're gonna obviously something's ranked higher on page 1, it's gonna get more clicks than something that's ranked, on page 2, say for instance. So it's all about driving that kind of quality organic traffic to a site. And yeah, like again, going back as a CRO, understanding the search intent can be particularly helpful, especially for long tail keywords. Say for instance, you've got all these landing pages that designed for long tail keywords. It may inform you that that you've got to make the page more informational and less more of a direct to consumer sell, and try to like capture those leads and help them out as much as you can with the copy and content you've got, and less be kind of like direct to market salesy sort of approach. Great. And then the other paid search of Google Ads is you basically paid search. So with, it's basically pay to play to get to the top of Google, and it is costly. It does cost money. You will tend to have like a lower, particularly with like short tail keywords. You tend to have like a lower conversion rate and higher bounce rates, because again, you're targeting those people at the lower stage of the buying funnel, and there is a CPA, a cost associated with a conversion event, whether that's a purchase or a lead gen sort of campaign. I can't show this, I won't open this up, but there's an awesome course by Isaac Rudansky on Udemy. It typically goes to maybe $20-30, but Udemy's got specials on all the time, so I recommend that. It's helped me out a lot. It's probably one of the most comprehensive courses I've done on Google Ads. And you can see like their typical example of a Google ad is it will always say sponsored. They've kind of get a little bit sly with how they kind of make it look organic. It used to be very obvious. I think it used to say paid ad or sponsored in green, but obviously want you to click on that as much as they can, that being Google. And yeah, just going back to like how this helps you as a CRO, it can help you to kind of understand the kind of users that you're targeting, and infer your landing page design, and to say, for instance, you're targeting all those short tail keyword people. You might want to have a landing page that immediately speaks to their needs with strong and clear calls to action and offers and so forth. And you would also want to improve the message match from search result to, say, the headline of your landing page and so forth, so that there's some sort of coherency there and consistency. Again, I think that's one of Cialdini's principles. We could also, as a CRO, you can also utilize your kind of knowledge of A/B testing with headlines and copy and so forth. If you within the actual ad itself. So if you're running the ads yourself, play around with these sort of variables, so you can, with the goal of increasing conversion rate and decreasing CPA and click to CPCs and so forth. So you can have like a double whammy effect, both at the kind of ad level and also the landing page level, which is really great. Another thing about traffic types and behavior, just quickly talking about email marketing. People say email is dead. It's definitely not dead. It's alive and well. You can do things like lead nurture. It's a good useful tool to build relationships, boost your brand awareness, and promote content. And yeah, you can obviously do like straight up offers and so forth. The big pro with this compared to like say social and other platforms is you own the like you own that list. You have more control over it. So if Facebook changes their algo policy overnight, you're not going to be affected by that because you own that list and you can email whenever you like and so forth. And good fact is 51% of marketers say it's their most effective marketing channel with the biggest ROI. I would have to agree with that as well. Costs hardly anything to do email marketing or even set up a AWS server to send out whole massive emails. So yeah, it's a really good platform. It's never going to go away, in my opinion. And I think knowledge of how this relates to CRO, obviously knowledge of the types of traffic that go to your page, whether that's from an email with an offer or information or so forth. Just knowledge of that can be helpful. And so you've got a big list that you're going to be sending out. Maybe you want to be able to use your CRO knowledge, use your A/B testing knowledge, like a paid ad within the actual email itself. Whether you want to test subject lines to increase the open rates, or click-through rates or so forth, and then also having that knowledge gives you an understanding of like the volume of traffic coming from that email, who directly land on that page, and knowing how much traffic is going to that page and what the pay offer is for, can infer like what kind of tests you want to develop as well. So yeah, just quickly go through paid and organic social media. So organic social media marketing can help you develop trust, credibility, and loyalty with your followers, as well as generate good, word of mouth referrals and organic reach. However, there's a declining organic reach on some platforms. I think notably Facebook and Instagram. It's all kind of pay to play these days. So with that being said, there's increased competition for people's attention, and there's always a need to be consistent on these platforms and to continually post things that are useful. And so it can be quite resource intense, and you often have like a full-time person doing this. Paid social media marketing can cut through that noise, and so it can cut through things without having to develop the reach internally, but it does cost you money. You will get the higher visibility and conversions and so forth. But yeah, there's a complexity with it, and with ads being regulated, and there can be a potential for ad fatigue and negative feedback loops, which can impact your conversions and so forth. But yeah, again, how this relates to CRO, understanding the difference between paid and organic sources of traffic can be useful. Say for instance, you've got a ton of money being put into a paid lead gen ad. Well, that may infer that you do more of a direct to market sort of offer with clear and bold calls to action, versus say you've got a lot of traffic coming from organic social. Maybe you want to do more messaging that's kind of going to help boost that loyalty and keep up the relationship and have less strong offers, so to speak. And like I said, you can also use your A/B testing knowledge within the ad platform if you have access to that tool, or if you're working with an agency or internal person in your company. I think another important thing is to learn how to code, and while that may not be necessarily marketing specific, it's in hindsight, by accident, it's helped me out a lot, especially with doing front end stuff. and having to rely less on developers both internally and externally is a bottleneck, which typically happens when you're either creating a new test or you're productionizing something that you're a winning test that you're wanting to put out there in the public. So just having a basic knowledge of HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. Basically, HTML is to do with the page content, whereas CSS, cascading styling sheets, is to do with the styles and look, or the look of the site. And then JavaScript is all about functionality of the site. So, when you click a button, an add to cart button, that adds the product to the to the database, and then you go to the next stage in the funnel and so forth. Two good websites I'd recommend would be W3 Schools, which is a free website. You can just Google W3 Schools and find your answer. I also found Free Code Camp really useful if you want to get more into the full stack side of things and nerd out there. But you can just sort of just browse around their front end modules. What it would do, like CRO wise, is start by coding out basic tests from headlines, CTAs, images, copy, and so forth, using the built-in WYSIWYG in your CRO tool. And so I've done that a little bit, but I've kind of gone on to more iterating previous tests from my agency, with kind of guidance and learnings that we've had from these tests. So basically it's which involves like going beyond the WYSIWYG and actually looking to their like actual custom coding and they've done, and just kind of making slight alterations here and there, and sort of googling my way through trying to find answers. I found that here's a pro tip: Google is your friend. So always Google your answer, your question. There's bound to be someone who's had the same or similar issue. Stack Overflow is a good website with Q&A in there. And good thing I've noticed is more CROs using ChatGPT. I've used it a little bit. Must admit, I'm not like a pro at ChatGPT, but I guess it's kind of useful to have AI to kind of solve a bit of your problems. And you can also use it to obviously do some basic coding and lay some template for you. Going back to like how this helps you out how the skill set helps you out as a CRO. What helps you to be more autonomous as an experimenter, to rely less on other parties, whether that's agencies or people internally in your company. And you can do like more of like, say, this set up more of the basic or simple tests or productionizations, and leave the bigger sort of more complex tests for your agency partner or another dev internally, so that they're not held up as a bottleneck in your organization. And another thing I've noticed, and this is not specifically about being T-shaped, but it's these things are like coding and being an influencer are really useful to be a more rounded CRO. I just wanted to add this because it's useful, but I found that holding ideation workshops where you can get potential test ideas, does actually help to engage the organization more in the CRO process and help you to be an evangelist in an organization, particularly if you're a client side. You may be the only one who knows about what experimentation is. So you often have to, in that case, have to be a champion for CRO. And if you can engage other people in the process about what issues, and this is like across departments, if you can get them all on the same page in a workshop, either online or in person, is really helpful. And it just sort of gives them buy-in and a feeling that they're participating in something, rather than you kind of being in your own silo, doing your own kind of so-called magical CRO stuff. I've done that to some degree of effect, and having presentations is really useful. So if your company does a lot of like internal presentations, if they're big on self-development and growth of their employees, then I encourage you to volunteer and do a presentation. I did one last year on, I think it was on the benefits of CRO, or how CRO can help a company. I think it was how CRO can help a company grow, and I got a lot of really good feedback because I explained that you know, a lot of the top Fortune 500 companies will use have an experimentation program, and it's helped their share market to grow over time. And I was able to share like wins and losses from our CRO program, and you know, visually being able to show tests is really useful too, because people don't want to get caught in the thick of the weeds. So just a little pro tip, you know, show visuals, show like what tests you've actually run, what tests you've productionized. These sort of things help make it more of a tangible experience for people. And yeah, you can get other buy-ins. I haven't done this yet, but yeah, like regular competitions, maybe for like guessing the test, or you can get people to kind of group together and vote for the test that they think is going to be a winner. That sort of thing. So the whole use of being an influencer and how that makes you a better CRO internally, or even externally as an agency is, you know, if you can make yourself a likable authority, in that space and engage with people, you're going to get better tests, ideas. You get outside your own head, and if you can, you know, you can motivate higher management to adopt a more kind of data centric and even customer centric perspective on things, then that goes a long way towards, you know, your program getting funding and getting the buy-in, and you know, really engaging the organization to be more experimentation and data driven. So last slide is finding a good mentor. I found mentorship is really useful because, you know, I'd normally sort of skip out on these things from my previous self, but I realized that, you know, you can only learn so much from books, and YouTube and courses, but these things do not give you intrinsic feedback. They don't give you optimal feedback or any feedback, and an experienced mentor can help identify like your blind spots, correct any false assumptions, make refinements to your work, and yeah, as opposed to you sort of like, you know, you bumbling along, making the same mistakes over and over again for years, to recognize finally that you've made those mistakes. And whilst finding a mentor, like it might be hard to find a free mentor. Maybe you might have to pay for one. Like I pay for one. And this guy's Ruben. Just a bit of a shout out, but I mean, I see him once a month, and he is, you know, 10 plus years of CRO and experimentation has been really useful. He's been able to look at my reporting and my assumptions, and look and really drill into some of the details that I've had. And so go check out his website, conversionideas.com. Yeah, I found him to be very invaluable and insightful, and yeah, and it's less of a, like, especially in my case, being the only kind of CRO in the company, client side, which can be like a lonely journey at times. It's been really useful in terms of motivating me to want to do better and continually learn, and have someone that's you got a relationship with and keep you accountable and those sort of things. So I highly recommend finding a mentor. I think Experimentation has their own sort of set of mentors on their website, so go check it out. So closing thoughts, being a T-shaped marketer has made me more rounded CRO, has made me kind of understand different traffic sources, and having empathy for that, and developing better test ideas, and you know, just bring that all together. Might be a little bit of a messy process to sort of like bring everything together. I don't know if there's like, I wouldn't say I've got a 4-step process of how to do it. I'm kind of just do it intuitively. But yeah, I would encourage you to start learning now. There's a lot of free and cheap resources. Go check out those books and links that I've mentioned on this presentation. And yeah, last but not least, find me on LinkedIn. Just type in Richard Joe. And yeah, I'm a regular on the Experimentation podcast. Hosted quite a few people. Want to host more. So yeah, reach out to me if you have found something interesting on podcast, or if you would like to have your voice heard. So yeah, thank you, and let me know how it goes.
This is Romo Santiago from Experiment Nation. Every week we share interviews with and conference sessions by our favorite conversion rate optimizers from around the world. So if you like this video, smash that like button and consider subscribing.